and welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. In today's review, I'm taking a look at the latest B&M exclusive, which is the Revenge of the Cybermen set, featuring 2 Cybermen, the Cyber Leader, and a Cybermat. First of all, a huge thank you to Chris Clark for very kindly sending these to me. Wasn't able to find them in Bristol, looked high and low, but Chris was able to get them for me and post them down to me, so a huge thank you to him and his wife for sorting that out for me. But for now, let's jump into the review. And I know what you're thinking. Matt, didn't you review this set 15 years ago? Well, I did, but there's been some updates since then, so let's dive in and start off by looking at the packaging. So the figures come packaged in the now familiar window box packaging with the current diamond logo, the Gatwell-Whittaker era TARDIS, and of course, the ever-faithful gold limited edition foil sticker, and of course it tells us that this is Revenge of the Cybermen 1975, and then we have some little diamond box outs telling us a little about the figures inside. On the back of the box we have a synopsis about Revenge of the Cybermen. When we take the figures out of the box, you can see the interior packaging has a diorama backdrop. We've got the interior of Nerva Beacon with a few little Easter eggs here and there. You can see the cyber ship flying out in space, and you can see the planet Voga, otherwise known as the Planet of Gold. This looks great. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the packaging, that the bubble is actually attached to the card as that old blister packaging, that means that you're going to destroy the backdrop by peeling it off, unfortunately. But if you do want to get a copy of this backdrop, I believe Al Dewar has posted a copy of it on Gallifrey Base, so go and have a look there if you're after it, because it's really cool. And then of course we have our 3 figures. Well, don't they look fantastic? I mean, I love these Cybermen. These were probably the first Cybermen I ever saw. Revenge of the Cybermen was probably the first Cyberman story I ever saw as a small boy. I love them. I love the design. I think they're great. I love the sort of chunkiness of them, the bulkiness of them. It gives them a real sort of weight and power. It's sort of a bit of an often maligned story, and I think it's one of those kind of like Death to the Daleks that I think it really works if you were born into the VHS era, and those were like the earliest stories, so it makes sense that they had a big impact on me. Let's start off by just taking a look at a standard Cyberman, and we're going to compare it to the original version that came out, like I said, way back in 2010. My God, seems like only yesterday, but it's so far away now. So first off, the sculpt looks fantastic. They did a phenomenal job with these back in the day, and obviously they still look amazing. The head looks like a perfect recreation of the original helmets. Like I said, I love the sort of chunky look of them. I love the gun in the top of the head. They're just great. You've got the teardrops. You can see very carefully, there's even a bit of detailing on the mesh of the eyes. They just look fantastic. Now, the original version was just a complete cover of silver. This time they've added some additional detailing, which I really love. It really brings out the sculpt a lot more. So we've got some gunmetal silver on the nozzle of the gun in the head. You've got the same gunmetal again in the eyes. That just adds a lot more depth and makes it feel a lot more realistic. And then they've also painted the slit of the mouth black, which again adds that little bit of extra depth to make it feel like it's more hollow and it isn't just a solid piece of plastic. So the new additions to the head I absolutely love. And then of course going down to the rest of the body, the torso and things, you've got all the tubing and the piping. I love that these Cybermen have got like this weird hump on the back. I'm assuming it's got something to do with the firing mechanism in the helmet, but it's cool. Again, it gives them a different silhouette and adds to that sort of like powerful chunkiness I mentioned earlier. Love all the little cans and tins or whatever they use for the caps on the shoulders, and then all of the wiring going down. You've got the sort of telephone wires being used for the in-between elbow bits, and then actually on the elbows you've got that sort of vent piping, that sort of rigid piping that they've used there to create that effect on the arms. So they've really done an incredible job capturing the detail of this. And then of course we have the chest unit, which also has had some updates compared to the original one. Now, when the publicity images of this came out, there was a little bit of concern on the internet, and I'll be honest, I will put my hand up and say I was one of those concerned with the new colours added to the chest piece. You've got this gold at the top and the bottom. In the publicity images that they released, a lot of these images are always like fiddled with in Photoshop, so they always look a bit more in your face and a bit more intense than they do in hand. And I've got to say that the gold doesn't look anywhere near as gold in real life. It's sort of like a metallic green, like a yellowy, not quite gold, because obviously if it's gold, that seems a bit silly in a story where gold is lethal to Cybermen. But it's not that bad at all. They've painted the top little ridges up here that colour. I did do a little research. I couldn't see any evidence of this. When they're in Wookiee Hole Caves shooting the stuff on Voga, one of them is red. I guess it's part of the firing mechanism again for the helmet, but otherwise they're just silver. Moving down to the main bulk of the chest piece, on the original ones, this middle strip, which is now this gunmetal silver, was a plain black. This new version is a lot more accurate. It's not such a strong black. It is this sort of dark metallic grey, so that works really well. And they've also updated the paint applications to the panels either side. So we have the 4 black dots on the left panel, and then on the right panel, this originally had some black detailing in there. That's now gone, again, because they looked into it and realised that that didn't need to be there. I didn't know that at the time when I got the original figures, but always good to see updates for accuracy. And then likewise, they updated the little circle at the bottom. On the original, these were painted black, but like I said, same with the middle bit, they aren't actually black on the original suits. And instead, they've gone for this sort of metallic greeny yellow, which I think works well. Certainly looking at the pictures, it's very difficult to see what's going on there. You can see that there might be a bit of yellow in there. Certain pictures, you can see there's a bit of red in there, possibly from, like, again, a wire for the firing mechanism or for the something to do with the costume. But I digress. It's so difficult. So I think going for this metallic, not quite gold colour does work, and it does add a little something extra to the design. And then, of course, moving down further, we've got the legs, which again have also been improved upon compared to the original. The original ones had a little gap between the leg and the crotch piece, which always looked like the leg might fall off. They were always fine, but this time they fixed it and the leg fits in a lot more snugly, which is great. We've still got all of that piping again going down the leg from the waist and then across the knee joints and down to the bottom of the wonderfully flared trousers, because this is 1974-75, and they've got the tubes. Again, another slight improvement compared to the original one. The tubing is now firmly stuck to the side of the leg. I think with the original ones, you could see that the tubing was just coming off a little bit at the bottom. Not a major disaster, but nice to see that it's been tightened up a little for the new version. So overall, the Cybermen look amazing. My fears about the gold have been put to rest because having them in hand, they are a lovely update to the original. And if we just move over to the Cyber Leader with his black helmet, again, features all of the same detailing as the Cyberman. The only difference is, of course, he's got the black on his head. This has all been done in a matte black, and he looks phenomenal. It's lovely and crisp all around the edges, and that gun metal on the gun nozzle at the top there looks so good. It really stands out against the black. He looks fantastic. And then, of course, let's go into the articulation. Starting with the head, no articulation here. The head is pretty much stuck in place, which makes sense. Something that I noticed that with the original figures, the heads, you could sort of pull them off quite easily. These ones feel a lot more solid, so that's good. You won't have any worries of the heads coming off. And then we move down to the shoulders. So the arms can go basically all the way around, but they are stopped ever so slightly by the little pads on the shoulders there, which is fine. They move as much as you need them to move. Likewise with the elbows, they've got the swivel joints here, which again aren't hindered by the tubing, which is really, really good. There's also swivel joints at the biceps, which they can swivel ever so slightly. But again, you've got these pipes here, which is stopping it from swiveling all the way around. Not that you would really need it to. Down to the wrists, we have swivel joints there. And then at the waist, we have a swivel joint here, unhindered by the piping, because that's actually two separate pieces, which is very clever that they did it that way. And then down to the hips can go forward. Again, the tubing doesn't seem to affect it, which is really nice, and neither does the sort of hem of the scuba diver's jacket, which they've sculpted in there, which is great. And the legs go out to the side as well. Again, slightly hindered by the tubing, but not too bad. And it's not like you're going to really want to be doing the splits with your Cybermen. And then finally, we've got articulation at the knees. Again, these swivel back and forth, unhindered again by the tubing. And then finally, down at the feet, they have swivel joints that move from side to side, slightly hindered by the flares of the trousers, but enough that you can swivel them to get them standing upright. So articulation-wise, really, really great. And then they also come with an accessory, which is the Cybermat. And this has had some paint deco updates as well. This one, I'm not quite so sure about, I must say. So from the top, it looks fine. It's just silver. And then down to the bottom, I love the sculpt of this. I like the design of these sort of more snake-like, I guess you could call them, Cybermats, but because they're quite big and they've got that longer neck compared to the little bug-eyed ones, the Tomb of the Cybermen and the Wheel in Space. The underside is really, really well sculpted as well. You can see all the ridges of the main body and like the folds here in between, which is great. And then this is where the deco changes compared to the original. The original had this darker silver here, which is the same sort of gunmetal grey that they've used on the guns and the chest pieces, which works really well, I think. They've also now painted this section black, which I believe, I haven't checked, but I believe that is more accurate to the series. And then we have this gold section at the end. Now, this seems slightly weird to me because in the episode, that's not gold, it's red. So that does seem a bit bizarre. The only thing I can think of is that there is that one scene where the Doctor fills the Cybermat with gold powder and uses it to attack a Cyberman. And in my head, this Cybermat is meant to be indicative of that scene, and this is the Cybermat that is going to attack the Cyberman. So I think that's how I'll display mine. I'll have the old normal one with the red mouth just at the side, ready to spring up on Sarah Jane or whatever, and then I'll have the gold-filled one attacking one of my Cybermen. So that's good fun. And there we have it. That is the Revenge of the Cybermen set, a lovely update to what was already a really good set, but I must say, the additional paint apps that I was slightly concerned about on the chest really do elevate the figures even further, particularly on the heads. And they still look great with the old ones. So if you're like me and you've still got your old ones, now you can have the full platoon of Cybermen from Revenge of the Cybermen. I think it was 3 Cybermen and the Cyber Leader. So now I have the whole set, and one can get attacked by my gold-filled Cybermat. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all soon for the Special Weapons Dalek and Remembrance of the Daleks set. Bye-bye!